Okay, we are live. I'm sure a lot of y'all will join. I've been patiently trying to work this out. A lot of times I have issues. Let's talk about Georgia and Tennessee Tech. Let's talk about Georgia and Clemson. The start of the season, always an exciting time. I'm at Red Zone downtown in Athens on Clayton Street. We talk about them all the time. You just come in, pop in. If you're seeing this, we can't wait to see you. Just leave your drinks at the table here. Go shopping, get a bunch of stuff. We've got audience here, small but meaningful audience. And let's talk about these what we saw from the Dogs in Atlanta. It was it was a slow first half, and then all of a sudden Georgia with 4 touchdown drives out of 5, if my math is correct. A lot of really solid football in the second half from the offense. It wasn't bad. It was not bad in the first half, to be honest with you. But sometimes these games at the beginning of the season can always be tricky, problematic. I know for me, I felt like Georgia had played well. I was a little surprised it took them as long as it did to get going. But, as we told y'all, this Clemson defense is pretty solid. And as it turns out, they were. But they got tired. I mean, you can't ask someone that weighs 300-something pounds to constantly run up and down a field, not knowing where the ball is going to be. It's exhausting. I don't weigh 300 pounds. I wouldn't want to do that. I'll tell you that right now. But for Georgia, it was a great win to start the season. And then you've got this game with Tennessee Tech coming up tomorrow, which we're going to learn a lot about. Guys like Gunnar Stockton, Trevor Etienne should play his first game as a Georgia Bulldog in Silver Britches tomorrow. There's so I talk about this a lot when I talk about these games and when I talk about what it's like in Athens. Y'all should come to Athens, take it all in, go to your favorite stores, go to your favorite restaurants, make sure that you're checking everything out. There's only 6 home weekends a year. If you're driving in from, wherever, Valdosta, Hahira, Carrollton, come downtown and check everything out. And then take everything in on Saturday. There's so much to – Sanford Stadium is not like a lot of places. I talk about this a lot too. It's a special place. I saw someone was talking about how special some place was in college football, and I was like, that place is a dump compared to Georgia. So I want to make sure that y'all are all having fun. There's so many places to eat and shop downtown. And, of course, right now until 5:30ish, I don't know what time we're going to stop because I got started so late. I'll be at Red Zone downtown. If you've never been here, when you're walking through campus, you're going to go to the Arch, cross the street, go to Clayton, and take a left. If you're walking from Town Hall or City Hall, whatever you want to call it, walk down a couple blocks, take a right. You'll see it. It's where everybody's got the best merchandise coming out of their store. So we're going to walk through this game tomorrow, Tennessee Tech. Not a ton of worry about this game, but it's not who you play, it's how you play. It's, as a person who played way too many games, matches, whatever you want to call it in college, you want to make sure that you're playing the right way, playing well, all those things. Can Georgia do that tomorrow? Surely they can. The line for this game, as a person who doesn't bet, I do follow the lines, though, quite a bit because I'm a psychopath, is the largest line in school history as it stands right now. Georgia is a 54.5-point favorite, which seems hard to fathom. That's hard to believe, to be honest with you. 54.5 points is quite a bit of ask for anybody. And every time you hear the door ring, that's just someone else coming into the store, checking everything out. Scott and Mindy have been here for 20 years plus, and we appreciate their friendship and the value that they're providing to all of y'all. Come in here and check it all out. But 54.5 points, I mean, that means if you are so inclined to do those sorts of things, you're really asking Georgia to be perfect tomorrow. Whereas with the Clemson game, there was some leeway there. You're only talking about 2 touchdowns, something like that. That's not that big of a deal. 54 points, you only get the ball so many times, and So we saw this past week, I was talking with somebody earlier in the week about how many points have been scored in the SEC, talking about 70-point games. Georgia's not scored 70 in some time. Most football games, you're only going to get the ball about 12 times. If you're scoring 70 points, that means you're scoring touchdowns. Quick math, went to school in DeKalb County. So that's 10 drives of a touchdown out of 12. That just doesn't happen. And so you can subtract a little bit out for the other team scoring. Let's just say Georgia scores 70 points tomorrow, which would be insane. If you're planning on, beating a line there, that means the other team kind of can't score. There can't be any pick sixes. There can't be any, mistakes. It's a substantial ask, but as the number one team in the country and a team that really had, I don't see how it can't be the best win of last week, considering, Clemson was the number 14 team in the country. Georgia looked really good. It did take a second or two to get going offensively, and that's not the end of the world. At the beginning of games and seasons and so forth, people are trickling in here downtown in Athens. I did not find the traffic to be that bad yet. You're going to want to beat the rush down here. Mindy and Scott will be open until about 1 o'clock tomorrow. Mindy, what time will y'all be open till tomorrow before the game?
We'll be open through the game.
Through the game now. I didn't know that. Okay. I'm just laughing. Mindy and we've known each other for some time now. But anyway, yeah, they'll be here through the game. So I'll just throw this out here. Maybe you come during the game. It's not the end of the world for. Yeah, Mindy's got the dogs covering. I don't think it's the end of the world to come downtown during. You're talking about at the half or something like that. There's nothing wrong with coming down here and checking everything out. I'm sure the game will be on the TV. I hope, but you'll find it everywhere here. So what are we expecting tomorrow? People are trickling in saying hello. Hi, thanks for coming in. You start talking about if Carson Beck's in the game in the third quarter, we've got a problem, right? First of all, so that'd be problematic. But like to see a lot of Gunnar Stockton. Like to see a lot of ETN. What's going to happen with the other backs? I went to Dwight Phillips' father and I played years of basketball together in high school. I would be very curious to see what Dwight would look like in Silver Bridges. I saw Dwight play at Pebblebrook probably this weekend last year, actually, and he is fast. And you got to leave out the lead here, which is Nate Frazier, who had a very good game against Clemson. Excuse me, Branson Robinson. There's going to be a lot. I don't expect Roderick Robinson to play. But anyway, if you're online here, just throw some questions to me. I had some issues getting rolling here because I don't typically use my laptop to stream. What do y'all think about the game? 54 points is a lot of points. And then, of course, Dog Post crew, we will be in Sanford at 12. Why are we going to go to the game so early? Well, again, I've already discussed and documented that I'm a psychopath. So the biggest thing for me on game days, we want to be in the stadium so if something messes up, I can recover, go back home, and come back. So we'll be in the stadium, but we get the chance to watch Michigan. Michigan is playing, Texas is going at Michigan. And then, for me, there's a lot of curiosity about South Carolina going up to Kentucky. Look, Carolina's play better than they did. That was a disaster against Old Dominion this past week. Not good enough, not going to work, all that sort of stuff. Not okay, and that the Cats are considered a 10-point favorite over Carolina. We'll see. South Carolina's going to have to play a lot better. Clemson, my wife will be at that game. Appalachian State will greet Clemson as they're running down the hill. Here's a comment saying Kirby's not running the score up running the FCS school into the ground like that. Not purposely, I don't think so. But when you think about it, so I've talked about this at Dog Post. I'll reiterate this here. And we wrote about this on Final Feelings. When you have the newsletter, you get these things directly sent to your inbox. The Nicholls State game, the Charleston Southern game, the Tennessee Martin game, and there was another game I can't remember. If y'all can think of it, just scream it out and I'll try to remember. But it was another game where Georgia was a massive favorite over a team, FCS team, and they have not yet covered any of those lines, which I don't think there's anything bad with that. But over time, the problem is, and I can speak to this as a school who was not even close to playing Division I schools, and we'd play them. It's not that what happened over time. You just get run over. They get rolling, and it's just too much after a while. And that's probably what's going to happen tomorrow, I would imagine. That's what I was talking about, how great an opportunity. Yeah, it was Nichols. I mentioned them, but I didn't group them into the other group. But it's a great opportunity for the young guys to play. There's no question. People may or may not remember, this was a Carson Beck game in 2022. This was like the, epitome of him getting reps. And you can talk about playing, you can think about it, you can practice, but until the Redcoats are playing or until you're at Neyland, you're not really playing a game until you're out there and everybody's running around you and you're in a pocket and, the pocket can collapse, or what's it like when I get hit? There's a zillion things. These games are really important. I'm just telling you right now, they are really important. Here's one question. Can we learn about Clemson? Can we learn anything about Clemson in that game? If they win, everybody will say they were supposed to win. Talking about Appalachian State. Well, it's the same principle with this one, although Appalachian State is significantly better than Tennessee Tech. Every single game matters. Every moment matters. So if Clemson doesn't perform the way that they probably should, and I don't mean just going out there and blowing Appalachian State out at the start. I'm talking about over time. We get 60 minutes to play these games. If it's 40-17, there's nothing to talk about. If it's 24-17, this is a different discussion. There's been a lot of malaise in Clemson world, and as a person who literally sleeps with one of them, they're not happy right now. And my brother-in-law, not just disappointed, but I would say angry. Thanks for coming in. Good to see you, bud. It's not great. I mean, Georgia, I'm trying to remember the last time Georgia lost an opener like that. I mean, they lost to Clemson 38-35 up there in 13. That wasn't the same thing. That was a fight between two top 10 teams and so forth. People are trickling into Red Zone. Make sure that you're coming in here. Some of y'all, I'm going to walk around, easy enough for me to say, in a little bit here, just to show y'all what they've got. It's a bunch of stuff. It's really nice gear, okay? Lots of champion stuff and so forth. But they have my books in the background, which is this is the only place you can get them in Athens. It might be the only place on earth you can get them right this second. But it's the other stuff. There's lots of really nice I call it gear, but it's clothing. Like my dad would wear that for sure. Well, I'll spotlight all these things in the near future. But people are mentioning other, schools and other players. The younger wide receivers. It would be great to see just no injuries. Let Drew Bobo get out there, snap the ball quite a bit. If Tate Ratledge, who is Georgia's right guard, if he's going to play center, let him get in at center. I mean, obviously, Kirby and Mike know vastly more about football and what to do than I would ever think about. But my point is, what would you like? What you'd like is the Dean Legges of the world, the guys who were, number 12 on the team of 15 people. You want them playing so that when they need to play, they can play. You don't want what wound up to me when I was a freshman, where you're out there all of a sudden and you're playing and it matters a lot, and that's not ideal because some of these guys they've never done this before, and it can certainly be intimidating. I remember the first time I was on the field for sure. Here's a comment saying, I'm thinking Kirby will have the second and third strings in after the first quarter. I don't know about the first quarter. But it will be soon. There's no explanation for Carson Beck being in this game late. And as we've all said, Mindy, who you will see immediately when you come in here on the right at Red Zone, and I'm going to hold her to this. She's got the Dogs covering that 54.5 points. That's a lot. She is not an expert bettor. I know I'm not. 54.5, that's brave. But if Georgia's not scored 30 points by the half, there's probably an explanation for that. Because again, as a person who does like math, let's just say you have 6 drives in the first half. That would be about, you should be able to score 4 touchdowns against Tennessee Tech in the first half. You would think. And if that doesn't include that doesn't score a defensive score either. So it's good. It's a good question. Stetson Bennett chimes in. He said he would like to see the ball thrown down the field. We got Stetson watching, which is amazing. Stetson, I hope everything's good in Los Angeles. They just didn't do that against Clemson. The Clemson game taught you so much about where Georgia is at, where Clemson's at, but what Georgia can do to be effective. They were, sweetheart, will you put that right here? That drink? When you start talking about scoring 34 points against a defense that is getting better, was elite, fell down a little bit, and now they've gotten better. I don't know if Clemson's elite on defensively. Georgia was not busy throwing the ball down the field. That could have been because they were not eager about their pass protection. It could have been like they felt like they didn't have to do that. I mean, I don't really know. I want to revisit something real quick too. Cash Jones scored a touchdown in that play. It was an amazing play. It was awesome. The stiff arm, all this stuff. It showed you his speed. But the biggest eruption on the sideline in the Clemson game was when Cash Jones picked up a block, which allowed London Humphreys to score a touchdown and put Georgia up kind of convincingly. I can't remember what the score was at that point, but the game was kind of over at that point. But when Cash came back to the sideline, he could not have been more accepted, celebrated, whatever you want to call it, by his teammates and coaches from making that block, which allowed Humphreys to on a kind of a crossing route, which was slow developing. If he doesn't make that block on Barrett Carter, they don't score that touchdown. I think that was third down, if I'm not mistaken. It was sort of a big moment. It might have been 13-3, and that made it 20-3. The games sometimes roll together with me. I can remember. My wheelhouse of games is 1995 until today. I can tell you what channel it was on, if it was raining, where the game was, who won. I can't tell you scores. That's harder. For instance, UAB 2006, that was an afternoon, 2003, that was an afternoon game. It was a tighter game than Georgia wanted. Ben Watson complained to me after the game that they should be using him more. They just didn't play well. I think it was 13-3, something like that. Hi, y'all. Everybody's piling in here at Red Zone now. Y'all need to come on down here. A whole lot of we're going to see a whole lot of running back play. I totally think that's accurate. I think that you're going to see, we're going to see some Nate. We're going to see ETN. If we don't see ETN, that would be surprising to me. Then you see Frazier. If those guys have more than 20 carries, if those guys have more than 15 carries, I'd be surprised. You got Branson Robinson. You've got the younger guys, including Phillips. And you got Cash Jones. I just named 5 people that don't even include Roger Robinson. So you're going to see a slew of running backs, a bevy of guys. I would expect that be the case as well. Stetson Bennett has retracted his last statement, so we'll have to get back to Stetson. Tough to run up the score with us. So it's not so much running up the score is not necessarily the way that I would put it. It's just hard to score a touchdown every time you get the ball. It just is, because the other team gets to play and you screw up. So that's the issue. So here's a question about Gunnar Stockton. Will he have more or fewer than 85 yards? And my suspicion is he'll have more. A successful day for Gunnar Stockton is, 8 of 12, 9 of 13 for 150 yards passing and 30 yards rushing. X amount of touchdowns, whatever that may be. Gunnar Stockton, when you go watch him, and when he was in 10th grade at Raven, it was so Gunnar was so much faster, quicker. He was so much more in control than the rest of everybody playing on the field. And now you're starting to see that slowly, like at the Florida State game, you sort of see that. I want to see that more and more and more from Gunnar because, Carson Beck's not going to be the quarterback at Georgia forever. Certainly Stetson Bennett is no longer the quarterback. You have guys, they're just not the quarterback anymore because they move on with their life. So I am very curious to see what happens with Gunnar Stockton, who I think is a really good player, but he's got to go do it. It's not like anybody, and it's not like anything else. I think So this is a very curious take. I'm not sure I believe it. I think Dabo held back once he saw his team was outmatched. I think Clemson will surprise some folks this season. So I think Clemson is probably the second best team in their league. They may be the best. It depends on Miami. They're better than Florida State. They're better than Georgia Tech. They just are. But I can't tell which Dabo to believe. Was it the post-game Dabo where he was talking about how they got their butt kicked, which they did, or was it the guy on, I think, Tuesday who was talking about how, we were running on them? I think he meant we were running with them, because they certainly were not running on Georgia. And, Clemson has its own issues. They're going to have to figure that out. They've got time. That NC State game, that is a huge game for Dabo Swinney, in my opinion. Who wins a fight between Matt and Ryan? So right now, definitely Matt. Definitely Matt. Ryan can't move right now. It was probably might not have been the right decision for him to go to the game the other day. The crutches were problematic. He was in pain a lot, and so that was not great. But Matt is definitely a cagey guy. A lot of the people that watch this don't know about the legend of Matt DeBerry, which is that, now Matt is married, one child on the way. Matt can't be the Matt that I knew and hired in 2016 and 15. That Matt, of course, as people at Dog Post would know, Matt wanted to wrestle alligators. Now, not full-blown alligators, but like baby alligators. Or he would probably tell you now, a full one. But that would be a disaster. That's the Matt DeBerry I know. But Matt's 30-something now, and he's not allowed to wrestle, I don't think, anybody. I don't at all think that Clemson held back. I want to circle back to that. I do not think that was the case. I think they just got beat. I think they were limited on offense. Phil Moffitt did all that he could do. He is not an explosive, dynamic running back. He is a good running back, and they have an adequate quarterback and who is extremely athletic, but so is everybody else that's out there for Georgia. That's the problem, is you can't depend on any one thing. You need multiple issues to deal with Georgia. What I mean to say is, like Ohio State, obviously Alabama last year, Ohio State 2 years ago, they gave Georgia a fair amount of trouble. Missouri, those guys, those three teams either had exceptional quarterbacks like C.J. Stroud, really good ones like the quarterback at Mizzou, or a guy that was extremely talented with his legs at Alabama. I mean, all of those guys gave you different problems in a way that I almost said Cole Stout, in the way that Klubnik does not. So, and then in addition, this is why the Clemson game is one measure of 12, right? The wide receivers, they're not there. T. Higgins, Mike Williams, guy that's with the Raiders, they're not there anymore. They're gone. And, they would scare you half to death if they were out there. And then, of course, ETN. So they had, and Deshaun's not there. Trevor's not there. Their best skill player is probably the tight end, just for what he does. And, that's not an ideal situation if you're trying to score 30 points and stick around with Georgia. That they scored, 3 was not ideal, but they're allowed to go out and recruit. They're allowed to go out and, they're not doing it, but they go out and get guys on the portal. It's all that. But listen, I've talked a lot about Clemson already. Thank you. Yeah, right there's great. There's people who are really coming in here. I want to make sure everybody knows I am in Athens, downtown. You can come stalk me if you'd like. You can come hang out if you'd like. Right now I'm going mobile for about 3 minutes, and then I'm coming back to my chair, so don't go anywhere. I'm going to show you as best I can. I'm going to show you Red Zone here in Athens. When you come in the door, Vincent's right here, and we're just moving around. We're going to see everybody. This is all the stuff. They got the children's stuff, okay? Look at the hat, yeah. When my children were younger, we partied in this area. My wife would get them stuff. It's well done. Look at all this champion gear. It's going to be cold weather soon. We're getting closer and closer to cold weather. Okay? Let's make sure that we have what we need in that area. Very nice cutter and bucks for your dad or, for yourself in that case. You should see me right now. It's just somewhat embarrassing. Got the quarter zips. Nope, that's a full deal zip. Lots of gear. Why do we spotlight our friends at Red Zone? They have been supportive. They have been supportive forever. Some stickers. Get yourself some stickers. Again, more cutter and buck. Don't look like trash when you go out. Have nice stuff. Here's everybody at the checkout area. Night gear. Jerseys for the kids. Cheerleaders. Quarter zips. Old school stuff for my buddies that like to wear these sorts of things. This is like the 1950s style gear. These are my favorite. This is the best idea. You can't get this anywhere else. These are hilarious. I'm on the natty list. Hunker down the chimney. That is hilarious. Feliz Navidogs. No one else has this. That is hilarious. And for the record, they have the little crowns and the so forth. This is a big store. Come by. Check it out. They've got, if you're alum, you didn't just fail out like some of us. No, I didn't fail out. I made it through somehow. But I tried. I got that. You know what? I'm not talking about my academic history any further. That is the extent of my academic history on this program, as they say. But I think someone's asking about the weather. The weather is outstanding. 80 degrees, something like that. It's awesome.
With a breeze.
A little breeze. Somebody's sweating, named Dean, because all I do is sweat. But it's not sweater weather yet. But the first thing you're going to see when you come in the store are the sweatshirts. Why? The next game is the Auburn game, which is quintessential sweatshirt, sweater weather. If you are not wearing a sweatshirt to that game, man, maybe that's good. But that is a sweatshirt game. How always has been. Thanks, man. Good to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Thank y'all.
Good to see y'all. So, but I really, the weather tomorrow is going to be outstanding. Hey, why? Why is the weather awesome? I don't know. I'm kind of, again, I like heat. I run in 90-degree weather. I like it. But, tomorrow it's supposed to be now, there was supposed to be rain at night, but I think even that's gone away. So everyone, downtown it's not nuts yet, but it will be soon. Don't worry. But all of these, these sweatshirts are awesome. There's Leslie coming in to say hello. Make sure you're dropping by when we're down here. The Chick-fil-A is right around the corner if you need a little snack, like some of y'all. I know how you are. But anyway, we're on Clayton, downtown. I'd send up the bat signal, but I don't quite know how to do that. But anyway, back to tomorrow. Claude Felton is going to get honored. If you don't know who Claude Felton is, there's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. He served the university from 78 or 9 until 2024. Was very instrumental in spreading the information about Georgia. People forget how much Dan McGill, Lauren Smith, and Claude Felton did or have done for Georgia in terms of the marketing of the university, in terms of the marketing of the athletics department. Vince, I left Vince out, but I think people know what Vince Dooley did. Georgia Tech was at least as big a deal as the Dogs in the 60s and probably halfway through the 70s, but certainly in the 60s and 50s. Someone had to change that, and it was those guys. It was McGill. That's why it's called the McGill Society. Lauren Smith, who is, if there's a bigger Georgia person than Lauren Smith, that person doesn't exist. It's Lauren. Claude. Georgia's had 2 sports information directors in the last, I think, 80 years, and Claude is one of them. So that's, he mattered a lot. He will be recognized at the half while the Georgia Bulldogs take on Tennessee Tech. I don't see any weather in the area, but it's the first home weekend, and then Georgia doesn't come back here until first weekend of October. So it's Tennessee Tech, Got to go up to Commonwealth, which can be tricky. I'm not sure it will be tricky this year, just to be honest with you. But it can be tricky. Then you get a week off before you go to Alabama. And, what will be the most curious thing about this weekend, too, you get to watch Alabama play again. They did not – it was okay against Western Kentucky at the start. It was not unbelievable, but they won by a lot. And then you look at the number that Ole Miss put up, and that was a lot. There were a lot of big numbers that were thrown up this week. And I think, some people were talking not that long ago about, why doesn't Georgia talked about a little bit more over this past weekend, that win against Clemson. It was the most substantial win. It mattered the most. It was probably the best win. But the LSU SC game was so back and forth and such a raucous thing, and the way that LSU lost that game was bizarre. I mean, they shouldn't have lost the game, but they did. And then you talk about, just how much of a collapse Florida State had. I mean, that is almost inexplicable. And I think that's what those two events, because I guess the Florida State double loss, that's hard to wipe out in terms of talking about things. That's hard to fathom that you'd lose two games before the end of week one. But obviously they played two games. Oh, here's an update. The 99 Gym Dogs, I don't know this to be true, but I don't doubt it. The 99 Gym Dogs are being honored at the half. Listen, if you've never been to the Gym Dogs, it is a spectacle. It is exceptional performance. And, I look forward to them getting back to the top. That it is its own amazing entertainment, performance, whatever you want to call it. It is an amazing thing to see. So Melissa has pointed that out. And then next game after this week is Kentucky. That is correct. So it'll be Tennessee Tech. I may have misspoken. I don't think I did. I can. But it goes Tennessee Tech. Then they go up to the Cats. So we will leave to go up to Commonwealth Stadium. If you've never been up there, this game traditionally with Kentucky has been 2 weeks before Florida. In that ballpark where Keeneland Racetrack is still going, and it's a whole big trip for Georgia folks. And then the Kentucky game started jumping around. Sometimes it's the last game of the conference season. Sometimes it was, we've seen Georgia play Kentucky in early October. Now they're playing them in September. There used to be a rhythm to seasons. That's all gone now, and that's gone so that Georgia can play Alabama and can play Texas and all of these different schools that are in the league, thankfully, and we're not having to drive out there. No, I don't drive out there anymore. I'm flipping that. Not having to go to Mizzou anymore. That is, well, you know what? You do have to drive to Missouri because I can't fly into Columbia. You fly into Columbia, it's like a G. So I don't have that kind of money. I don't have red zone money. I have other kind of money, right? You have to fly to St. Louis or you have to fly to Kansas City. We typically prefer Kansas City, and you go into Columbia. I like Columbia, Missouri. It's nice. I like Lexington, Kentucky. It's nice, but nowhere's like here. No, no bias, no whatever. Georgia folks don't realize. I'm telling you, I say this over and over and over again. Georgia people don't know how nice they've got it. If you don't believe me, go to Auburn. Go to Columbia, South Carolina. Go to Knoxville. Go to Tuscaloosa. These places are not at all like this. Now, Oxford, a little bit, but it's not as nice. There's a lot of mystique about Ole Miss, and that's cute, but, it's not the same as here. You could throw a football and have a good place to eat, okay, in downtown Athens. The stadiums, they're just not as nice as they are here. They're just not. Now, Alabama's nice. The stadium's nice. Yeah, you go to Neyland. You go to Tiger Stadium. You go to Death Valley. You go to, at Clemson. You want food? You better bring it. Columbia, South Carolina, you want food? You better bring it. You can't just say, oh, well, I'll just get Chick-fil-A, or I'll, hit up Eurowrap, or I'm going to go to the place. or, I'm going to, whatever. No, it's not like that there. There's no place to eat. You have to get it and then drive it into the game. It's not the same, and it's not as nice. So take advantage of everything that you've got here in Athens. I've been to Austin. I've not been to Austin for a game. Austin is like Athens. It's just a lot bigger. So a lot bigger. So, someone's pointing out, talking about the Florida debacle, if you want to call it that. Look, that's gotten bad down there. And that's gotten really bad down there. And there will be a decision made sooner than later about what Florida's going to do. I don't think there's really much of a decision to be made. Now, one consideration here is the athletic director that hired Billy Napier is still there. He will probably get his head chopped off. And that won't happen, though. Well, the curveball of all of this is the president there just left. He just got there and he just left. So there's a bit of a problem at Florida on that front. And you typically don't make these decisions without input from the president of the institution. So it's not great at Florida right now, and it'll get better. I mean, look, I fully expect that Florida will make a run at Lane Kiffin. We'll see if that happens. I don't know. But we're here at Red Zone on Clayton Street downtown in Athens. It is the place to come if you need any Georgia stuff. Hey, look, if you want to go down and risk your life at the bookstore with 20,000 people down there, hey, have at it, man. But you can't park. You can't. It's just, it is not for me. This place is locally owned. Scott and Mindy have been in business in Athens for 20 plus years. Thanks for coming in. Bye, y'all. It's our home. I can't tell you how many times I've been in here. So make sure you're coming by Red Zone and picking up all sorts of stuff. Frankly, red coat band stuff, national championship stuff from all 4 national championships. Georgia should claim all of their national championships. Don't get me started. But all sorts of sweats. They've got the books behind me, and that's great. But there's so much other stuff in here that you need to check out, and they'll be open today until 6. They will be open through the game. So let's say your game plan is it's going to be 2 nuts before the game, but we're leaving at the half. Well, just, it's about a 10 to 15 minute walk, depending on which part of the stadium you're going to. It's about a 10 to 15 minute walk from the stadium to Red Zone. So make sure that you're dropping by, even at the half, if you're leaving, to come by and shop, and then you go back to Duluth, or God bless you if you're going all the way to Marietta. That sounds awful, but if you're having to do that, that can certainly be your plan as well. But I thought it was a good game for the Dogs against Clemson. It just took a second or two to get rolling. And there's no real shame in that. Every time you hear the door jingle, someone's coming in. That's how often people have been coming in. So make sure that you're doing what you need to do to come down and check everything out. Lots of people coming in. But it could have been better. But like sometimes, go ahead. I'm fine. Sometimes it's difficult to. It's not easy to score. I mean, that's the hardest part. Is, how do you score against a very good defense? It doesn't happen immediately. And we did not see, Carson and company really hit the ball, not even try the ball deep this past week. And we're going to see. You saw Aaron Smith had a really productive game against Clemson. That could be bigger. We saw Humphreys with a big game. We did not see Dylan Bell have a big game. I'm not worried about Dylan Bell. I'm not worried about Dominic Lovett. I mean, these guys know what they're doing. But we didn't see – same thing with Oscar Delp. Georgia played that game with a lot of the players that made plays are guys who have never made plays for Georgia before. Doesn't mean they didn't make plays at other plays. Colby Young scoring a touchdown. He's so much bigger than those guys from Clemson. That was the other thing, too. I mean, I know Colby Young is a big person, but, like – I'm just thinking back on it. He was noticeably bigger than the DB from Clemson. And if you want to say anything about Clemson, I'll tell you one thing. They got defensive guys for sure, but he was noticeably bigger. And so you start thinking about what are your options in those situations. That was a one-on-one situation. There was no safety around. I was right there. I mean, he scored it like, I don't know, 10 yards from me, maybe 10 feet. And he was noticeably larger than the DB from Clemson. Now, that's always the case, right? The receivers are usually bigger, longer at least. But, it was, noticeably bigger. We saw guys like KJ Bolden, He made a lot. He was flying around a lot. He made one play, I remember very specifically, that ball that Clemson threw to the outside right. And here comes, thank y'all for coming in. Here comes KJ Bolden and just, that was a great tackle, open field tackle, and that end of that drive. And you cannot go backwards against Georgia. If you have questions or comments, make sure you're posting them, and I'll rant on those things too. We're at Red Zone on Clayton down here. But you had Nate Frazier, KJ Bolden, you had Humphreys, you had a slew of guys constantly making plays, and it was a very good day in Atlanta for Georgia, but it took a second or two to get going, which happens. You don't just roll out and score touchdowns all the time. Hi. We've got some young girls coming in. They've never seen someone broadcast to the front of the store, which just doesn't happen very often, so that's understandable. But it was just too much. The landslide. So think about it this way. The landslide that happened in the second half, if that happens in the first half, people are immediately comparing it to the Oregon game. They just are, because I think the score of that game was 24-3 at the 28-3 at the half, something like that. Oregon scored I think they kicked the field goal, but I'm not sure. I can't recall, but I know. Boom, Carson Beck was in the game after Georgia scored and made it 35 to whatever. And so it was a thorough beating. The week leading up to the game, what happened in that game was what I thought would happen in that game. However, when I saw the line dancing around, getting knocked down to 11, 10 and a half, I was like, what's happening? Well, what am I missing here? And I didn't think Clemson could score. And looking back on it, I think it makes what happened in that game makes sense. It was hard for Georgia to score, and then the dam broke, and it became just too difficult. Here's an age-old question. Why did Kirby pick Jake Fromm over Fields? So I wrote about this in 2019 leading up to the season, and it really wasn't anything complicated. There were two things going on at once, but mainly it was as simple as this. First of all, Jake Fromm had taken Georgia to the national championship game. One play from winning the national championship. When Jake Fromm left the field, Georgia was up 3, and of course they had 2nd and 26 when the fateful play happened for Alabama to win the national championship. Otherwise, Jake Fromm wins the national championship as a true freshman coming in there. That would be and he won the league. You don't quickly replace your starting quarterback who's won you the league and came a play away from winning the national championship. The spring for Justin was not great. So the time when he was going to make a move, it was hard to make a move. And then you get into the season. I mean, I talked off the record with people for that story that we had in 19. People who were at Georgia had gone and moved on. It was asking too much to make a change like that. Now, I will say this. For Georgia, had Justin stuck around in 19, he definitely would have played a lot more, and he may have been the starter by the end of the season. Georgia was not producing the way they should have offensively in 2019. Was that Jake? I mean, was that the skilled players? I mean, basically had DeAndre Swift, and that was where he was at. There was not a lot of super skilled NFL guys on that team from skill perspective. They were adequate. They weren't great. Thanks for coming in. So, but by then, Justin needed to go. It was the right play for him. He needed to go on and go. So here's a question. I want to try to make sure I understand the question. Does having Bennett and Cash Jones being walk-ons and making a difference on this team mean anything? Well, that's a tricky question. First of all, with Stetson, he had been a walk-on. When he came back to Georgia in 19, he was on scholarship, just to be clear about that. I'm not aware that Cash Jones has ever been on scholarship. And I don't. And in today's world with NIL, you don't have to be on scholarship. So more nuance. The problem as it stands in the near future as well is what we don't know is what these scholarship limitations are going to be. It is possible, unless I may be misinformed here with what's happened lately. It is possible that in the very near future that walk-ons are not permitted because you have moved the scholarship level from 85 to 105. So like a lot of these coaches are against that, which I don't blame them. If I were, I would want a walk-on program, particularly if I'm, like if I'm at Georgia, I want a walk-on program because there's so many good players in the state that you can have. Cash Jones is from Texas, but you get my point. So you're going away from a walk-on program that's developed a lot of really good, Rodrigo, Stetson, et cetera. There's a lot of really good walk-ons who have come through and been important at Georgia. But as it stands in the future here, or in the near future, it's hard to know what's going to happen with the adjustment in scholarships. So that's really far down in the weeds for me to explain right now. But I do think it matters because it matters because when a walk-on makes it, no one's given them much of anything other than a chance. And a lot of times they've had to work to get that chance, okay? And that's hard to do. Cash Jones is probably their number 4 or so running back, maybe 5. I don't know. He's got 2 guys that did not play in that game, and 2 guys went in front of him. So it'd probably he'd be the 5. He may be the 4. Maybe he's in front of Roger Robinson. I don't think so, but if your number 5 guy, for now, is a walk-on guy at running back, you're getting value from that. That's another scholarship that you can use elsewhere with the 85. When it becomes 105 or whatever the number is that they settle on, that won't be as big of a deal. That won't be. Hold on one second, y'all. I got Matt Publish. I've got Matt texting me. I can't talk to him on the phone, obviously. Here's kind of the follow-up. My question was more about Kirby and his thought process besides about who makes the field, how that might inspire other players on the team. So I think you're thinking too much, and here's why. Once you're on the practice field, just to be frank, they don't give a shit. If you are good enough, you're going to play. Period. You didn't mention Dan Jackson. Maybe it's just oversight. Dan Jackson's never been on scholarship. Dan Jackson is right there. That's Dan Jackson. Now, why does that matter? You've got, just for the record, can you see? Yeah, you can see it. Wow. Keely Ringo, who you may or may not have heard of. That, I think, is behind right there. I think that's Christopher Smith, but I'm not. It may be Trayvon Walker. I can't recall. That's Christopher. Oh my gosh. Well, we know that's Nolan. I know that's Dan Jackson, Keely, etc. Well, why do I point that out? Here's Dan Jackson from Gainesville, right? It's not, West Hall, East Hall, one of the halls. It's not a school that's known for some great football. It's not Buford. This guy is out here for the most monumental play in recent Georgia history. And, his play didn't get Keely into the end zone, but he got rocked right at the end just to have some fun right before they went in. He was out there. It was 3rd and 10 or whatever it was when that pick was thrown. 2nd and 10 maybe. Dan Jackson was out there because they trust Dan Jackson. Not because he's a walk-on, not because he, it's because he works hard. Don't get me wrong. But Dan was out there because he was one of the best guys. Now, William Poole was in on that play. Christopher Smith was in on that play. William, Christopher, Dan Jackson, Keely, and there was maybe one or two other. I can't remember who the 5th DV was in on that play. But speaking to your point, he did get destroyed in that photo. Absolutely destroyed. But my point is only that there's actually, there are 2 former walk-ons, one right here and one right there, who were on that play. And William Poole, who I'm almost certain that's William right there. I think, I have to go back and look. There's Nolan. I think that's William Poole. That's Dan Jackson. I think that's Trayvon, but I'm not totally sure. And obviously Keely. And obviously you got Stetson behind me back there. They are going to put the best player on the field. Remember this. So Georgia goes in 21. They beat Clemson 10-3. It was a complete slogfest. What we didn't know at the time, but was strange, was that Georgia wasn't throwing the ball down the field. Well, what we didn't know was, JT Daniels couldn't throw. He had oblique issues. JT had issues, generally speaking. He had an oblique issue at that moment. He couldn't throw the ball. They couldn't throw it down the field. So here they come, for the UAB game. Stetson plays really well. They open up the quarterback competition. Week 3. We know that now. See how everything comes out. They open up the quarterback competition between JT and Stetson, the former walk-on. They don't care. They want to play the best player. And it never was said to Stetson, hey, you're starting. You're the guy. That was never said, but he kept being with the ones, and he kept playing really well. I remember coming off the field in Knoxville, and by then up there in the Rocky Mountain, in the Smokies, it gets cold. It gets cold at night in Kentucky. At Kentucky night games, Tennessee night games, or afternoons that spill into night. In the fall, it gets cold up there. I remember how cold it was, and that game, Stetson had played really pretty well. The throw to James Cook, just the dead leg move to get to the end zone. That might have been the same play. I can't remember. But he had 2 fantabulous plays, if you want to call that being a word. But he also, A.D. Mitchell was stepping up and becoming a big player at the time. They were both walking off the field. I took a picture of them. I remember how cold it was. At that moment, I was talking to somebody who was relatively knowledgeable about football but was not on the staff at Georgia, and I said, I was getting the Christmas tree down, or getting them ready to get the Christmas tree down from the attic, and I said, well, I wouldn't take him out. Why? He gave you so much. They were winning so convincingly, and they never took him away. And that was the right call. They did the right thing there. So to the discussion of, Christopher Smith is a great example of a guy that I don't know if it matters that we or people, the media or fans, quote, give up on players. I don't think that really matters. But inside the program, they obviously know far more than we know. Christopher Smith was doing just fine. And you saw what it was like to have a really experienced guy come in, and he was forgotten about. And then Richard LeCount got hurt against Florida in 2020. And then all of a sudden, Christopher Smith's out there, and he's got to start making play. And, it was important. Christopher Smith mattered a lot. Think about that LSU play. Think about the play against Clemson, winning the national championship, in that season. Christopher Smith mattered a lot, and he was certainly a guy that nobody was talking about or whatever. Question about Jim Donnan and Ray Goff. So it's important to remember that, from 1960 whatever on, until 88, Georgia had one coach. So there's not exactly rolling through coaches like Florida has lately. But Ray was too young to get that job. Ray would tell you that. He was too young. It was the wrong choice. And that's okay. I mean, we make bad decisions in life sometimes. Jim Donnan moved the ball forward for Georgia. You have to remember where Georgia was at the time. I mean, Glenn Mason turned them down. He was the coach at Kansas. He picked Minnesota, if I'm not mistaken. That's where Georgia was at nationally. It was that bad. That should have never been the case, but that's what it had become. And, so I was talking about Claude earlier, but, that was just before Christmas, or right on top of Christmas, when Jim Donnan was hired. And it was the losses to Tech that cost him the job, for sure. The losses to Carolina did not help, and the lack of success against Florida and Tennessee was a big problem. But, Jim Donnan, generally speaking, moved Georgia forward, I would say. And then you brought Mark in. I mean, Mark was a noticeable difference from what it had been, and you saw that immediately in the first 6 games of the season when they beat Tennessee. It's just right out of the bat. I mean, that was a shocking result, and it was a great way to move forward. We are downtown at Red Zone on Clayton. There are a lot of folks that are coming in now. It's 4:30, and I think a lot of people are making their way from suburban Atlanta or wherever, middle Georgia. It doesn't have to be Atlanta always. Some of us grew up there, so we're going to reference it. But make sure you're coming here to check out all the clothing, the awesome gear they have. We've talked about, they've got pennants, they've got Red Coat Band stuff, they've got stuff that's officially from the university, they've got Hawaiian shirts, they've got multiple print shirts. There's all sorts of stuff that you can get here. And there's stuff that you can get here and only here, like the Feliz Navidades or the Hunker Down the Chimney sweatshirts. Those are hilarious. If you don't have them, you're doing yourself a disservice. Make sure you're grabbing them or at least checking them out. They run out of stuff. That's the other problem, is their stuff is so rare and neat that they run out of things. But we'll be here until 5 or a little bit after, talking about Georgia, who is playing Tennessee Tech, 2 o'clock tomorrow. If you don't know how to stream that game, all you have to do is mosey on over to Dog Post. We tell you how you can watch it. It's not that complicated. If you have a subscription to ESPN, you will be able to get the game. Well, you have to have ESPN, ESPN Plus, or SEC Nation, one of those things. So make sure you go and read the information that we've got. It will tell you exactly how to do it. We probably got, I don't know, maybe 60 people in here now, so it's not that crowded yet. The other thing about Red Zone, tomorrow the game's at 2. That means halftime will be about 3:30-ish. They will still be open. I don't know. I'll have to ask Mindy or Scott when they get back up here, but I would imagine they'll be open until at least 7 o'clock. But if you want to check out, like a lot of y'all will, at the half, it's too hot. It's not going to be too hot. I'm just going to tell you right now, it's not going to be too hot. It's 80 degrees. All right, you can easily work your way to Sanford Stadium and be okay. But if you are coming back downtown, you want to drop back in because they're not going to be closed for a while. And if you leave at the half, you can come here, shop, eat, and be on your way right back out. Live in no problem. Because you might say, man, I don't want to go downtown during the pregame rush. I understand that. If you got questions online, make sure that you're asking them. It's a big weekend. You've got the Michigan-Texas game. Those two have never played at Michigan before. I don't think they've ever played in a regular season, but I could be wrong about that. But I know they've never played at Michigan. Obviously, you've got South Carolina, Kentucky. You've got a very curious game. We'll see. I don't think they're very good, but Nebraska and Colorado, a game that was huge when I was a child for the Big 8 championship. A lot, not all the time. Anybody doesn't know what the Big 8 is. That's the Big 12 schools that were not the teams left in the Big 12 that are not Oklahoma. That was the Big 8 plus Oklahoma. Okay, so it's them. Well, and obviously Colorado back to the Big 12 now, so that will be curious. to see how that goes. I don't know. I don't trust either of those teams right now, to be honest with you. But we're broadcasting live. Scott and Mindy have been our buddies for sometimes 20 years now. They are an institution here in Athens. Everybody's piling in for the games. Hey, y'all. Thanks for coming in. Bye.
What, honey?
And it's just so if you've not been to Athens and you're coming in for the game, I know a lot of y'all have not been here in a long time. There's just not a lot of places like Athens, Georgia. But we'll see tomorrow with ETN playing, Carson Beck. I want to see some of the backup players go. I mean, can Gunnar Stockton with the twos come in and function properly? Will he be in there with the ones? My suspicion is that the time to judge Gunnar is when he's going with the ones against Tennessee Tech. That's when I would say it would make the most sense to say, okay, we can see what he's doing now. Like, this is important. When he's with the twos, it might be a little bit trickier, but when you're with the ones, you really should function. And I'm trying to think, it was the Florida State game when they left the ones in there with him at the start of the third. I can't recall off the top of my head, but I think that was an important moment for Gunnar Stockton, and it's tomorrow's important for him as well. Here's a question that may be important this weekend. Do you think Shane Beamer, who is the South Carolina head coach, makes it past this year? The Kentucky game will matter a lot for Shane Beamer in his future. So Shane got to Carolina in 21. Of course, had a pretty good 21. Beat Clemson up there. They're not going to beat Clemson this year. That doesn't look like it at all to me because they can't do anything. And then, 22 and 23 were sort of pedestrian. Lost to Notre Dame in the bowl game in 22. 23, I can't hardly remember what happened with Carolina, which is not a good sign. They got up on Georgia and lost by double digits. I mean, congratulations. So it's just, I don't know. His act has gotten old with people like me, but I'm not a Carolina person, and I don't have to deal with his sort of antics. He's done a pretty good job, and I think the question is at Carolina, I think the problem at Carolina, and to some degree Clemson too, is if you're not Steve Spurrier or modern-day Dabo Swinney, are you always chasing that? Like, is that always what you're going to be? I have been around South Carolina. I went to college there. I know a lot of Carolina people. They are patient people, and I think they want it to work, but they know it's probably not going to. I think the challenge for them is, who is the right fit for South Carolina? I actually think Shane Beamer is the right fit, but he's not getting done what needs to get done, which is be more competitive. So we'll see tomorrow is really important with Kentucky. The main description of the defense from Saturday is the speed. Any comparison on the speed between these teams in 21 and 22. So I think the 24 defense and the 22 defense in terms of speed are probably comparable. The 21 defense was fast, but what jumped out the most to me with the 21 defense was the beef. You had Trayvon, Jalen, Jordan, Devontae. Jalen Carter did not start. So, I mean, yes, Nakobe was fast. Quay Walker was fast. These linebackers now are pretty fast too. But the 22 group, some of those guys are still playing in the 24. You've got Ismail Munden, to some degree Chaz Chambliss. I mean, you've got a group in this group here. Justin Williams is going to be a really good linebacker for Georgia. Okay, so Raylan Wilson. I mean, there are guys who are really good on this team. They're just not as big up front, which is like my beef with them is the beef. And my concern now against Clemson, that wasn't a concern. That was not a concern. Will that be a concern against Texas? Will that be a concern against Alabama? I don't know. I mean, like, Clemson's not dynamic offensively, so that means you're limited in the run game. All right, if they can slow you down, in the run and you're forcing a quarterback to throw, even if they're outstanding, that's hard to pull off, man. It's hard to constantly throw the football. It's hard for me on the field to tell how fast someone like KJ Bolden is really fast. Well, I knew that when he was at Grayson from watching him play at Grayson. You do always want to see guys play in college to make sure, but like it wasn't surprising that Malachi Starks and you see these guys in high school and they can fly. Well, they're going to fly in college almost certainly too. So with KJ, that was not surprising, but it's hard for me being on the field with a 500 millimeter. It's always challenging for me to see speed, horizontal speed at least. Vertical coming at me, yeah. Horizontal, that's trickier for me. So the guys like Matt DeBerry, when we left the game, and 15,000 some odd people watched us after the game, which was great. I encourage everybody to do that and sign up for the newsletter and all that stuff. But one thing that Matt said when we were doing Riding Home was, it is amazing how fast these guys are. Well, I can't see that as much. What I see is the physicality in a very big way on the field, or the suddenness of guys. Speed is harder for me to see just because of my circumstance. But Matt vouched for the speed. He said they are legit. I will not say who the other person was that I talked to in 22 because I don't want to give away who they are or were. But their takeaway from preseason practice was how fast Georgia was on defense. And you're hearing the same thing now. But the challenge here is they're not as big up front. So the speed is great, but we'll just see, like if Alabama or Texas want to fight them in a phone booth, that might be more problematic for Georgia. We'll just see. So here's a question talking about Ohio State, which I've been to, and the shoe. Look, Columbus is okay. It's not great. I've been Lexington, Kentucky is a good place to go. If you're a fan, you want to go to a road game, I would encourage you to go to Lexington. It's a nice place downtown. It's not that challenging to get into Commonwealth. The places that if you've been there once, you're going to be okay. Like, you don't need to go back. Columbia, South Carolina. I would say Tuscaloosa. Although I do love Death Valley, I think one trip to LSU is a lot. That is the toughest place to play next to Tennessee. Tennessee is just very challenging once you get in the stadium. It doesn't. Some things don't make sense. You can't get from one level to the next. Like, it's for people like me that are doing a lot of stuff on the game day, like going from the field to the top of the stadium. I want the stadiums to make sense. Tennessee doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Bobby Dodd is very difficult with that. Mark Richt Field, Bobby Dodd Stadium. So those are hard places to maneuver around. I've not been to Texas yet. Clemson is always, I would say, if you've been to Clemson once, don't go at night ever. It is impossible to get out of there. I know that way too well. My wife is a big Clemson fan, and I have broken up with Clemson. I'm not going back. Not sitting in traffic for no reason. It's horrific. But Vanderbilt's easy in and out. It's not a great stadium. Obviously, Jacksonville, there's stuff to work on down there. They're trying to work on it. It's better than it was. I'll say that for Jacksonville. It's better than it was. That's not saying, oh, hello.
Hi.
That's not saying much. And then I'm trying to think of other places. Auburn is not that bad. They do a great job with a lot of stuff at Auburn. They do a really great job with stuff inside the stadium. Getting out of Auburn is a mess almost always, but nothing compares to Clemson. It's horrible. And there's just nothing. There's nothing easy about it. There's nothing great about it. I would say, Tuscaloosa. The thing about Athens, it's got everything you need. Obviously, we're at Red Zone right now downtown. Again, you could go get ice cream and come back. You could go sit down for an extremely good meal. You can go to a brewery. You can go to, you can get fast food. You can get Chick-fil-A. You can get Euro Wrap. You can get a zillion. You can go to campuses not even 5-minute walk from here. Well, it's a 3-minute walk from red zone. So there's so much that Athens has got that other schools don't. It's just not like this anywhere else, and it's hard. It's hard. I know people here don't appreciate it because they live it, and they don't know how nice it is. But as a person who goes to a lot of different places, and they have their own thing, in Columbia, South Carolina, Columbia, Missouri is nice. Lexington, Kentucky, those places are nice. It's just hard to get there from here, particularly Columbia, Missouri. It's a discussion of you can get better seats at Vanderbilt than you can here. So Georgia football fans are much like Kentucky basketball fans. Sometimes they go to the away games to get better tickets because it's easier. And that's the case for, if you're going to Mississippi State, if you're going to Vanderbilt, you can get nicer seats on the road. Often Mercedes-Benz, you're just going to pay more at Mercedes-Benz. That is a quintessential Atlanta game. You can tell that's an Atlanta game. That is not like a game in Athens. It is more hoity-toity. It's, Athens games are different than Jacksonville is different than Atlanta. Like, they're all three Georgia crowds, but they're different. Jacksonville is a complete – you better be ready for a mess when you go down there. It's just a mess. And the game is always a lot of fun. It's one of the great spectacles of sport. I mean, I've been in the Masters, in the Kentucky Derby, the Final Four, all of these things. I've never seen anything like Georgia, Florida. It is the most bizarre event ever. It's tame compared to the way it used to be. I will say that. I mean, back in the day, they used to serve alcohol, and they do now. I don't even know what I'm saying. They serve alcohol there. But it used to be every other section was the other school. So it would go Georgia, Florida, Georgia, Florida, Georgia, Florida, all around the stadium. And then they went to quads. So one quarter were the Gators, and then Georgia, and then the Gators, and then Georgia. And then they just said, you know what, we're just splitting everybody up. Everybody's on one side, and then you're on this side. So there's fewer fan interactions. But in the area surrounding the stadium, which has been made nicer, but is still very challenging in terms of traffic, it's a mess. I will say, the Stetson Bennett character that's on here is quite funny. I'm sure you're using your flip phone to text here on this live chat. It's Dean Legge here at Red Zone again, downtown. I'm doing this one live. Scott and Mindy, we talked about this a while ago. I know a lot of people are wondering where you should go shop. If you want to brave the bookstore and you want to pack a lunch, go do it. Go have fun down there, trying to park, trying to fight that crowd. Or you can come here and get locally owned business helping you with everything that you need. This is the place to come. I've known Scott and Mindy for some time now, and it's the only place currently that you can get these books. So if you've not picked up Dog Destruction and Double Dogs, please do so today. But come down to Red Zone to grab them. The games are always on. So when Georgia's playing, or, I would imagine tomorrow they'll have Michigan and Texas on until the 2 o'clock when the Dogs get on. And then, again, as I've said, they are open during the game. They are going to brave it. They will. If you're like, you know what, I've had enough. Carson Beck's out. I've seen enough of Gunnar Stockton. Let's just go downtown. They will be open here. Everybody else ain't going to be open, so make sure you come down here and check everything else. More and more people are coming in. It's 5 o'clock. That's not surprising. And make sure you're not missing out on anything yourself. But I'm very here's someone talking about Decatur. So some of us know Decatur very well. I was in Decatur last week. We ate it. Well, I didn't eat in Decatur. I ate at Vaminelli's in Tucker. But, I spent my childhood running back and forth to Decatur, or being in Decatur, playing sports, basketball, tennis, whatever it was. And so love Decatur and so forth. Someone's got a Stetson Bennett Rams jersey, which is super aggressive. That means you don't want Matthew to start? Is that what that means? Is that what you're subliminally wanting? Poor Matthew Stafford. I see Matthew. I met Matthew when he was 17, I think. I don't think he was 16. Matthew has not changed at all. He is chilled out the whole time. He has always been a great sport as far as I'm concerned to me. I'm glad I was so happy for him to have won that Super Bowl. I don't know if he'll be a Hall of Fame guy in the NFL. He may not. I mean, is Matt Ryan one? Everybody's saying.
No.
Some people say yes, some people say yeah. No, I don't know. But Matthew has a Super Bowl. He has longevity. Matthew was a great ambassador. Continues to be a great ambassador to Georgia. He's not made a big deal about it, but he's given over $1 million back to the athletic department. I know he's made a lot of money, but $1 million is not an insignificant amount of money to give back to your institution. So here's a question about NIL and how much money Georgia's spent to, quote, put their roster together. It's not insignificant. I don't know that $21 million is correct. One thing that's also important to remember about the court case that's not been settled quite yet, but will be soon, is that will all get mandated soon for agreements with the student athletes and the institutions. But that has not been dealt with completely yet. So there are still things changing on that front. My challenge with Ohio State right now, Ohio State is probably the team directly in Georgia's path, okay, to win the national championship. If I'm guessing, because you still have Alabama, you still have Texas, but Ohio State. But my problem with Ohio State is I just don't trust the quarterback personally. And they got everything else, man. Like, those running backs are the real deal for sure. But we're just going to see, your quarterback has got to go out and make plays, and it's got to be okay to make plays. And when you think about the last 3 seasons, Georgia's lost twice, obviously both to Alabama. And in those games, the quarterbacks have played in those games exceptionally well to particularly well. And when you think about the Missouri game in 22 as well as 23 and what Brady Cook did in those games, Brady Cook is very good, the quarterback at Missouri. And then C.J. Stroud. That universe of quarterbacks is who's given Georgia trouble, okay? Is the guy at Ohio State as good as Stroud? If he's not, then he's going to need more help. Do they have someone as good as Marvin Harrison? No, they do not. The quarterback is not as good. The defense is noticeably better, though. So it's like everything else in life. Just because one thing's better doesn't mean, so there's different variables that you can change and mess with and go along the way. It just means I'm a Stetson fan. No offense to Stanford or Stafford. Yeah, I get it, man. You don't need to keep correcting it. Look, I understand why people love Stetson. Stetson continues to be an exceptional story in collegiate athletics. If he's not, at some stage, y'all will hear. There will be a movie. There will be, a book. But I would just say this about, Stetson and just everybody generally speaking, it's not a linear path. Everybody doesn't just... Are you out, Vincent?
No, I'll be back.
Okay. Everybody doesn't just have a straight line path to greatness or to... It's not easy. And, for Stetson's had a lot to deal with personally. Stetson's had a lot to deal with athletically. And part of life is learning how to modulate everything that you have to put yourself in position to be successful. And there's no guidebook. They don't give you a book to say, oh, this is how you do it. It's challenging. And, we're going to see with Stetson. Garoppolo's in front of him in the depth chart there. So he goes Matthew, Garoppolo, Stetson. He makes a lot of plays. Now, he does some dumb stuff, a lot. But he makes a lot of plays. And I want to see Stetson give himself an opportunity to give someone else to give him an opportunity, if I'm saying that right. He needs to be around long enough to get a shot and be capable, because everything Brock Purdy does at the Niners, Stetson can do that, and perhaps better, but he's got to be in the league in order for those things to happen. But that's why these games are so important. Another quick story. I remember very well, very vividly, it was the It was in early 2019. They were playing Murray State. It was late in the game. It was probably at the beginning of the fourth quarter, and Stetson threw a pick six. And no one was at the game. And with where I am on the sideline, it depends sometimes. But in this case, I was on the bridge side, the home sideline, bridge side. And that's exactly where Stetson threw the end zone, and threw the pick six. And so here comes Stetson after the pick six, and who comes to meet him? Kirby. And they have a very brief discussion about what happened. It was very adult language, which I will leave out. And that was coaching. That was teaching. That moment almost certainly helped Stetson get better. He threw a pick six after that, because I think he threw one against Alabama in 21. But it gives you the ability. These moments are so important to get out there. I don't hope Gunnar Stockton throws a pick six tomorrow, but if he does, it gives him the chance to say, "Oh, that was dumb. Let's not do that again." Or if this is a great game for Carson Beck. If Carson Beck's going to throw a pick six, this would be an ideal day to do it. What do you need to see this weekend from Georgia to say that they are progressing? Well, I didn't like what Kirby said about practice on Monday, which was something that was talked about on Sunday, which is you'll learn a lot about practice from the way they practice, or about this team, the way they practice on Monday. The caveat to that, though, was something that Kirby pointed out, which was it's Labor Day. We're completely screwed up. The kids didn't have classes. It wasn't regular routine. So he's kind of got a point there. And then he said Tuesday was very good. So I don't know. I mean, like, I don't know if we're supposed to go on Monday or Tuesday. It's my made up thing, so I can say whatever. But there's only so many practices. I learned that the hard way in college. Like, there's only so many times you get to go out there, and as exhausting as those practices can be, a lot of times you don't want to be there. I'm just going to tell you that right now. It's not fun. Practices are very rough and not fun. And that was me, right? That's not at Georgia, where they're about going up against the toughest person to go play against. But there's only so many practices, so you can't kind of waste them. We had a 20-hour week. That was it. You could only practice 20 hours in a week during the season. That's not actually a lot. So he didn't say they wasted it. He just said it wasn't great, and he was explaining why. And I think that for Georgia, Saturday is as close to a practice as they're going to get until the Massachusetts game. And so they need to take it seriously. And those guys will, because they know there's only so many opportunities to play. We're downtown at Red Zone on Clayton. We talked about it. We've been around the block with Red Zone for a long time. There's all sorts of gear that you can get here that you cannot get anywhere else. Hunker down the chimney. The Christmas stuff is already in stock. You can at least get the ugly, they call it ugly Christmas sweater. That's a little bit aggressive for me. I think it's a festive Christmas sweater is what I would call it. Who's on the natty list instead of the naughty list. These are unique things. You cannot get them anywhere else. There's a slew of sweatshirts. It might not seem like it yet, but it is about to be sweatshirt season and in Athens. Now, not tomorrow, but it will be sooner than you think. Well, it's going to be 64 in the low tomorrow. And on Sunday, it will be 60s. And then on Tuesday, allegedly, it will be in the 50s. So it's not so far from sweatshirt season. And the next home game will be Auburn. And there's like this rule. If you don't have a sweatshirt while Georgia plays Auburn, something's wrong. So make sure you get them here at Red Zone. If you want to fight the traffic elsewhere, hey man, hey, you go do your thing. But I'm coming downtown where I can shop, where I can park, where I can shop, where I can eat, where I can go downtown and window drive. This isn't the only place; it's just the best place. So that's what I would say: is come downtown, check everything out. There's a slew of places. If you want a cookie, you go down to the cookie store, which I've kept in business many years now. So there's a slew of places to come downtown, but make sure you come by Red Zone. There's art, there's pennants. They've got the national championship stuff. The official university seal has got some SEC stuff. A slew of children's clothes. If you need cheerleader outfits, if you need night clothes, if you need all of those things, they're all here. Bye. Everyone's coming in and leaving.
Enjoy the show.
Hey, thanks. So everybody's coming in to say hello and check everything out. But it's going to be such a fun weekend of sports. We've got Michigan and Texas coming in to kick this thing out. It's going to be very exciting, at least for some of us. And I will be the person staying up tonight to watch Duke play Northwestern because I have problems, clearly. So I'll be checking that out as well. But tomorrow will be great. I mean, anytime you get to the opportunity to go watch Georgia play a legitimate game in Sanford, you should do it. And you should take in what is an awesome experience. It's not really summer anymore, okay? Good or bad. But it's very reasonable out there right now. And there's a slew of places to go hang out. Or you can just walk on old campus. You know, if you went to Georgia, if you didn't go to Georgia, who cares? Just come on to Athens and check it out. While you're here, you're going to go to Red Zone. Do y'all still have these, the back-to-back?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm not going to turn the camera, but they still have these back-to-back. How many? Oh, you know what? So this caught my eye. They still have those in stock. I would imagine if they win it this year, would you do 21, 22, 24?
If we win,
If Georgia wins it, yeah.
don't say it out loud, but we'll have something great.
So they'll have something completely ready if and when that happens. We've got a long way to go, which is the good news. But make sure you're getting everything you need. Come in locally owned for 24. Wait, how long?
Since 2003.
So 21 years of being locally owned downtown in Athens. You don't get a lot of places like that. Dog Post, locally owned. So I think tomorrow you want to see Carson come out, be crisp. You want to see ETN come out and get some stuff done. You want to see. I would like to see Dwight Phillips go. That's just me being selfish. I want to see what KJ Bolden's got going on. Is Ellis Robinson, Justin Williams? How's Freeling doing? I mean, there's a slew of guys who have played, but they need to play more, you know. And this is the best. This is one of the best chances because you know you're about to get into the slate here. You're talking about Kentucky. Georgia will beat Kentucky. Okay, I'm just saying it's not going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be up at Commonwealth. Kentucky's a very physical team. They're hard to deal with. They're just like Georgia. They just don't have the skill players like Georgia. So it can be a real physical affair. It's not always a lot of fun playing the Cats. Secondly, you get the off week. But the whole time, as soon as Georgia gets done with Kentucky, as soon as Kirk Herbstreit and Chris Fowler log off, everybody's going to say, are they going to beat Alabama? Can they beat Alabama? This, that, and the other about Alabama. You know, they're a 4.5-point favorite against Alabama right now. And everybody's going to be panicking about the Alabama game. And then when the Alabama game's over, then you've got a slew of games in a row. Auburn, State, Texas. They're playing at Texas. And then you got off, and then the Gators, and then at Ole Miss. This is a very difficult schedule. It is totally possible that Georgia plays Clemson. This is off the top of my head. Clemson ranked, Kentucky ranked, Alabama ranked. Kentucky's not ranked, but they could be. Clemson, Kentucky, Bama. Okay, Texas certainly will be. Ole Miss, Tennessee will be. You could have Georgia Tech ranked. We'll see. And then in the SEC championship, that would be in theory 8 teams. They will certainly play 6 ranked teams, and we'll just see what happens. But that's a lot of challenging to deal with. And then if you don't win the league, you're going to be hosting a pre-Christmas game where Red Zone's going to be slammed that week. I'm going to tell you that right now. If Georgia loses the SEC championship game and then turns around 2 weeks later and is hosting, whoever, Boise, this place is going to be full. It's going to be. We will have literally never seen that in our entire life. Was Georgia playing a home game in December with all of it on the line. So that will be nuts. But everybody keeps. It is accurate that. It is accurate that this is a season like we've never seen before. That is accurate to say because we've never seen a 12-team playoff. However, I will just say this. Let's just keep this possibility in mind. We have seen Georgia go undefeated before. We have seen Georgia win a national championship with 1 loss before. That is not unprecedented. And both of those things are very much on the table this year. And I think that, you would imagine with how challenging this game, this schedule is, you'd imagine they will lose a game. It's just that the Larry Munson sky is falling attitude doesn't have to be there. You know, it's okay if you lose this time. You just don't want to lose, by like a zillion, something like that. That would not be ideal. Now, whether or not that happens is a good question. I'm not convinced that they necessarily do lose. But you're playing at Alabama and at Texas, and you're playing at Ole Miss. Those will all be challenging games. Georgia's going to be favored in all of them as it stands right now, but we'll just see if that continues. Because we don't know the answer to that, and time will tell. Now, will Rashada be the number 4, or will it be the freshman? This is a good question. I mean, I don't think you have to play 3 quarterbacks tomorrow, but I think they'd like to. And it would be very curious to see who the 3 is. And you would think it would be Rashada. I don't think it has to be him. It's a guy that started at Arizona State for a little bit. So you would think he would have the lead on Puglisi, but I don't know. I mean, there's no telling, to be honest with you. And so that's something. They can't both go in. I mean, they can, but somebody's got to play quarterback. So there's that challenge. Puglisi really, a lot of people are very excited about what the future can be with him. So we'll see about that too. The quarterbacks are always so much fun. Everybody likes to talk about quarterbacks, what they see with quarterbacks. We saw Carson when he was a junior. We saw Gunner when he was a sophomore and senior. Puglisi we never saw, or did Matt see him? I can't remember. It's so hard. With quarterbacks, the physical tools are almost always there. The question is always, can they play quarterback? Not can they throw a football, right? A lot of people can throw a football. Playing quarterback is different than throwing a football. And I think we've learned that well over time, or at least I hope we have. And that's going to be the question for all these guys is, can they get developed in a way that they're playing quarterback at a winning level? Because that's not necessarily throwing a football. A lot of people can throw it. You just got to throw it to the right person. You got to throw it at the right time. You got to lead and do all these things, etc. Yes, Puglisi is certainly redshirting, but it's somewhat to some degree between him and Rashada. It's irrelevant who goes in first now, because it doesn't matter who's in the front now. Because I can assure you, when we get to the spring, everything is going to be flat, and it will be a complete quarterback competition with Gunner, with everybody, and that's just what it's going to be. They will go at it really hard, and you should go at it hard too. Tomorrow there will be a lot of folks. It's the first time Georgia's played a home game since the Ole Miss game last year. That was in the winter, almost certainly the fall. And now we're creeping up on the fall, trying to get away from the summer as fast as we can, which we are accomplishing. And we're doing it at Red Zone here on Clayton. We talk about them a lot. They've been good friends of ours for years now. The store has become more and more crowded. You can rewind it and see how crowded it was earlier. I'll maybe try to flip it around just for a second and see. There's a lot. We have a bit of an audience too, thankfully, but they've got so much stuff. We've got so much stuff in here. A lot of sweatshirts, obviously, because of the looming change in weather, but t-shirts too. They got the ice hockey stuff. If you like Georgia's ice hockey club team, they've got all of their gear in here, and I showed you all of the vintage clothing as well to make sure you're taking out. And it'd be great if you came in. Don't forget the website's ujredzone.com and check that out too. And Mindy and Scott is flying around today. I've not seen Scott as much. Mindy is patrolling here at the front, making sure everything is going well. But I want to make sure y'all come in. There's no place like Athens in the fall. The spring in Athens is pretty awesome too. Don't get me wrong, actually. But the fall is amazing. And you can do so much fun stuff downtown. And when you're downtown, make sure that you're dropping by here. If you're only going to the bookstore, you are making a mistake on a lot of different levels. That's not Athens. That's the bookstore. This is Athens. This is where you can get unique stuff. Hunker Down the Chimney, Who's on the Natty List. You can get the books, which are great Christmas gifts, by the way. Will you leave that drink right here? Is that a big deal?
Yeah,
Thank
no,
you.
It's fine. You can,
Thanks.
Is there a trash can? I can actually throw it
I'll
away.
just take it. Thanks.
Thank you.
We're out here. Hey, man, we're ready to roll. That's a pet peeve. We do leave drinks at the table, drinks and food. Long story. But there's all sorts of things that you can grab while you're here. And I want to make sure that everybody's taking advantage of it. Again, store will be open at 9 o'clock. So you've got a lot of leeway here. Now, pay attention to this part. It's important too. Yes, it's open at 9 o'clock in the morning. So if you want to go hit up a place for breakfast, Chick-fil-A's right around the corner. No sponsorship with Chick-fil-A. I'm just mentioning them. Got Euro Wrap, which is my daughter's favorite place to eat. The place right down there, all this stuff. There's a million different places. Polly's, there's a zillion places to go eat or do whatever. But Red Zone will be open at 9. They will also be open during the game. So I know everybody's going to go to the game. I get it. They're going to go to the game, watch the dogs run out, and then by like half, everybody's going to be like, it's too hot. They're blowing them out. I'm bored. I want more cotton candy, yada, yada. So when you leave, they will be open here. They'll be open at the half. When you leave at the half or whatever, that's your prerogative. It's your ticket, by the way. Don't let anybody bully you into making you stay the whole time if you don't want to. It's your ticket. But if you choose to leave and you're saying, well, I want to beat the crowd, I don't want to go there when it's crazy at 12 or whatever, then go when you leave and shop and get yourself some hats. I didn't mention the hats. There's a zillion hats here, so pick those up as well. And why come here? Well, it's the best place to be. Okay, I can't tell you how many people are coming in here. It's a lot. It's not so many that it's crowded, but it's a lot. Why are they coming in here? Because it's good. Okay, and secondly, they've been our friends for a long time, and I am honest with my audience when I tell you, this is where I would shop. This is where I did shop. So, if you need a flag, if you need pennants, if you need shirts, sweatshirts, if you want to bring your canine in, they're welcome too. Just can't bring the drinks. The drinks stay at the table. Drinks and bubble gum, I think, are the things that are no good, as I recall.
You on TikTok.
Hey, thank you. This guy sees me on TikTok.
I see you on TikTok.
One of many places I appear, thankfully. So just have everybody come in and check everything out. The dogs will kick tomorrow at 2. If you don't know how to get the game, did I say KJ went somewhere other than Buford, David? I don't think I did. Believe me, I went to enough Buford games last year. I went to Buford games in multiple states last year, believe it or not. But if you don't know how to stream the game, we have an article about that on the website. Just type in Tennessee Tech Dog Post. Just go to dogpost.com. And you'll see how to stream it, and you can lay it out doing it that way. It won't be hard to figure out. But tomorrow, they'll kick at 2. It's not a rolling clock. It is possible. I don't think this will happen. It is possible the game could get so out of control that they could roll the clock in the 4th. I don't think they'll do that. If there's weather, they could do that, but there's not supposed to be weather. So there's all sorts of things to consider about these games. Where are you parking? Do you have your tickets? Yada yada yada. All that stuff's digital now, thankfully, so Dad doesn't leave it, at home. But we'll be seeing all of you on Riding Home after the game, and we'll be seeing you at Red Zone before or after or even during the game, so that you make sure that you're checking all these things out. Clayton Street, downtown, Red Zone, Dean Legge from Dog Post. We'll see y'all on Riding Home after the game. I'm gonna go shop. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the website and the newsletter.
Go dog!